Good morning, everyone. Reading comments. All right, good morning. So the big event is over. Election madness behind us, and pretty much turned out as what the majorities were expecting. So now I guess the new fun begins with what the House is going to do to upset progress. And we'll just see how that goes. The pattern that we have here is certainly not one that is suggesting some big move. While we have markets opening higher, this is not a swing type of setup. And as we'll look at different markets, it's a continuation pattern. We had a low put in here. It gapped up. It made a low. It had a bottoming tail bar that took out the prior lows here and went sideways. And at the end of the day, yesterday, buyers showed up. I guess if we could say that they knew something, I guess they were willing to say that it wasn't going to be a big event. And I've said this in the past. Markets tend to like indecision in Washington and not a definitive situation where things can happen, I suppose, rapidly. So anyway, this area right here now needs to hold, obviously. And as we do every day, it starts with, can it take out the prior day's high or low? And clearly it's taking out, as far as the S&Ps goes, it's taking out the prior day's high. We can see where it's trading. It's below the high that it got to, which you can see here. There was a little breakout failure there, right up at the high there at whatever time that was, 5 o'clock in the morning. And now it's pulling back into some support at around 277, which still is okay as far as a gap goes. It was higher. Let's just eyeball that, 278-ish. Right, was up here, and it's gapping near this resistance here. So this isn't a pattern that says, hey, you know what, this is such a fantastic opportunity. The next question is, can it hold up in the face of this resistance to work its way higher, or does it roll back over? I'm not so sure that we're going to get that answer today, since it's gapping from this consolidation. If it was to this strength to evaporate and end with a red day, obviously that wouldn't be a very good result to a gap up day. We'll just have to see. But right now, it's gapping up close to this resistance. And just like we would at any other time with a gap, ignoring the news event, we evaluate that gap as far as, where's it gapping from? Where's it gapping to? What is the reaction after the gap? So it's gapping up from a little consolidation within a downtrend, and it's gapping up close to resistance, but it's not at the peak of resistance. So there's room for it to go higher up to that 280 area, which is a round number that should have some effect, as well as this prior high here. Now, assuming that it gets there and it's close enough, we can see that the depth of retracement here is pretty deep. And that was what we spoke about at the end of last week, was that, we had a pretty big reversal on the weekly time frame, which has broken down. It broke through this support here. So this was a deep retracement the other way. And so we have a big, ugly red bearish bar on the monthly time frame. So the takeaway from this is, as far as multiple time frames goes, it's totally screwed up. So, get your bias in alignment with what is, to say that with the monthly now, it's still in an uptrend, but we've got this gigantic ugly red bar on the monthly time frame, and we've got a weekly time frame with a Where'd my thing go here? Oh, geez. Oh, here it is. We've got a weekly time frame with a reversal after a breakdown into support. So we've got forces in different time frames that are now out of sync, whereas before they were all in sync to the upside. So this will have to be dealt with, which will take time, right? Something similar to this, right? This type of a price pattern is one in which it sets up a meaningful big move, whereas this type of a pattern typically ends up with, okay, it's gotten, so far, and then it's going to come back down again, or it's going to rattle around. So, to think that there's going to be some explosive type of move here higher, it's unlikely to happen. So we just keep that in perspective as we find different opportunities. Why is that damn thing disappearing? A little shortcut thing that I have there. Okay. So here we go. Back to the S&Ps. Supply transferred. Some already. Yes, Tony. So what you're saying is, has the S&P transferred some of this supply already? Clearly it has. It's kind of caught between, it got to this level, these overlapping bars. And we shouldn't say this wouldn't be considered a huge amount of supply here, because you just got two overlapping bars that headed down, and you've got this gap fill where you're coming into this next area of supply or resistance. And so it's gone sideways here. And this is one of the patterns I spoke about last week, where it would take out a prior bar's low. But that being said, I guess if we just traded this from the perspective of, look, forget the news. This is the chart. And as long as it holds this low, go ahead and buy it. And this positive close said it's higher. But whenever we have a buy setup, the next question is, okay, that's a setup. Is it saying it's going to go up or down? Is it in the context of an uptrend or a downtrend? Where's the next resistance area? So those questions bring you to an objective analysis of what is. So yes, it absorbs some of this supply. Can it get through here? I don't know. Based on the way it came down, I would say I think it's unlikely that it goes through it as if it wasn't there. Meaning, let's say, look, we make certain assumptions based on what's in alignment. So if we had multiple time frames, right, in alignment, and we had this kind of a pullback, say we had this pattern over here with a monthly, weekly, and daily, and this is the daily pulling back, and we had this setup, would you believe or have a bias that prices could take out this high? I think we all would, because multiple time frame alignment and a pullback to support within an uptrend on a daily time frame says it's going to make a higher high. But this is in a downtrend. The depth of retracement puts that downtrend in question. And now that it's retraced more than 80%, according to the rules that I use, I move the trend to sideways from down, even though it hasn't taken out major resistance. So we'll have to see what it does here. And if it does that, let's assume, okay, that this is moving up, and let's assume that it takes out that high tomorrow or Friday. What's the next part of our thought process and our method that we use, right? We have different concepts that guide us. And so everything that is taught in Master Trader Technical Strategies or the swing trading course is based on concepts that we put together that formulate a trading plan to guide our bias and thoughts. So this is a continuation pattern as explained. And so now if this makes this move, if we get a measured type of move, the other concept is after a greater than 100% retracement, expect prices to stall. And we see the reversal. Then we see what kind of reversal forms. So based on this pattern and strength and assuming that this strength is going to hold up today, that could get through here, hitting the 50 MA, which is declining, is likely to result in a pullback pattern. And then we'll assess that from that point on. But today, our main focus is going to be, what happens in the next 30 minutes as to whether buyers can hold this and not fill that gap. So we're going to see. Do I ever trade from the monthly chart? No. Meaning I get a bias from a monthly chart. I mean, I could trade from the monthly chart, but you're asking me a personal question, meaning do I take a setup from a monthly chart and base my share sizing, and position on that monthly chart? I don't, because I don't have to. I can take the bias from that monthly chart and then move down to a smaller time frame and then enter from there. All right. So monthly that's obviously a very long period of time for swing trading, and it's kind of irrelevant for day trading. So why should I share size based on that monthly chart? And then in addition, then have a bias that says, hey, I have to wait another month unless prices, completely fail based on what preceded that provided the bias. So get a bias from it and then trade accordingly. And that monthly chart is, back to saying, hey, this is out of sync here because it's in an uptrend, but it's the biggest monthly big red bar that we've seen in a very long time. And, so I don't want to repeat here, but, things are out of sync here. So I think, with this election thing behind us, I think we're still facing the same situation where things are going to be trading in an erratic way, which says, hey, it's better to trade a little smaller with more room, and let's just see how different positions unfold. So, we, during this period of uncertainty where we've been less active, especially with the options trades, this is probably going to be more advantageous of a situation, whereas to say, what, the upside's probably limited, the downside at this point is probably limited. Can we find scenarios where we can stay far enough away from the now with some premium in there? And that's always the harder part. Finding the patterns are pretty easy. Finding the strikes that are far away from the now with premium is the difficult part. That's kind of what I call the grunt work of options trading, so to speak, meaning the patterns are easy. Now go out and find the patterns that are alignment with the option strategy. It's grunt work, right? But it is what it is, as I say. So cues here, gapping up and coming down to the gap fill, 173. 30-ish or so, 50-ish, 33, looks like 35. Couldn't take out the high. So relative weakness to the S&P. We know the FANG stocks have been smashed. So still, if it can hold up here, it should go higher. But it's got resistance here, and we'll just bar by bar. What does it do? Does it hold the first 30 minutes of trading where it says it can go higher? Do buyers really want to take control here? And so it started. Let's see how far it goes. Russell led the way down. Looks the best. Looks like it can continue, but it's pulling back as I speak into the gap fill. Let's see as it pulls back into there. And it's about 155-ish. This is 155. The close 154.62-ish. So we'll see if it can make the turn. And just looking at this here, 155. I mean, this thing might open up like nothing ever happened, So, it's like all of this rhetoric and waiting and so on and so forth may just be like looking at this here and where it's going to open us like what was there some event that happened that you guys went through all of this talk over the last 2 weeks? And Dan had brought this up yesterday as to saying, like, look, what if there is no gap? So I mean, gonna make it interesting even for our talk today in MT Live, where it was like, okay, there's this big event, things are gonna gap, and it's like, really, guys, where's the gap? I mean, there is some stuff gapping here, but I don't think it's related to the election anyway. Transports, more of a continuation pattern and a downtrend, but it's not taking out resistance. So we'll see where that goes. And the Dow, which has been stronger, right? And gapped up, it's coming back in again. And same story there. Just looking at the futures quickly. Sometimes you get a better perspective. And you can see here, the ability to ignore that topping tail. 3 days, third day, how far can it get today? Does it turn into a lower high? Can it get up to the prior high? Honestly, I don't know. Things are out of sync. And when things are out of sync, it creates uncertainty. So far, it's grinding up into this prior high. The resistance here, just eyeballing it, it's getting close to 80%. So decent move off of the low. And we'll want to look at the weekly here. It took out last week's low, and you can see the break that happened on the weekly chart, which took out that major support level, went down into the area of the next support level, and now it's bouncing up. So looking at this weekly time frame, historically, what kind of a pattern would this suggest? Well, coming up in about this area, rolling over and going back down, because it moved down so sharply that that's just plain and simple a bearish pattern. So we'll see how far this gets. Today is Wednesday, so we've got 3 full trading days to see what happens here. Bonds up a little bit. Let's go back to the daily chart, and just sideways in a downtrend, and looks like it can go lower, right? If it gets through here, which means interest rates go higher, and that is what supposedly got this market concerned and moving to the downside before. So we'll see. Oil stabilizing here at that 62 area, and so pretty big drop in crude oil, beginning to hold that level. And lastly, gold, kind of a yawn here today. So that's it. That's the bias based on what I see here, and we'll see what happens in the next few minutes. What has held up well, and I'm going to be looking to possibly take a position in, is Square, SQ. Kind of like this, again, along the thought patterns of a continuation pattern, a move above these highs here, possibly getting up to the 50 MA, nice consolidation at that resistance there. And AMD acted pretty well. And so I know it's in a downtrend, but that's something that maybe can continue to show some strength here in the short term. All yours, Dan.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, like we said yesterday, we have the tools to know what is dealt at us, and we'll just deal with it. We have a few open positions here. Hey, Sudden. We cashed out of our bear call spread yesterday at a nice profit on the Qs. That was good. Fizzler, we instituted a bear call spread yesterday. It's, gapping up a little bit, but nothing to worry about. We're in Ross, covered call. We have Oracle, long stock. SCS, long stock, and that looks fantastic. I'm going to put that in a window. That looks fantastic to add. we have what else? Oh, XLP, put spread, Kroger, put spread. So all our positions are fine. Let's look at a bunch of gappers here and leftovers. This is gapping up USCR. That was a beautiful 1, 2, 3. And then 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll see if we can get an entry. This thing gapping down 445, bearish gap. God, look at this thing. That is definitely lagging in the oil patch. That might be going out of business if it doesn't get bought out. 28. So this is a huge gap way the heck up here, but it's too big. I need a setup. HEAR 1920, bearish gap under yesterday's low. Well, I don't know what a Democratic leftover is, but yeah, I have a big watch list, as you know. Boeing here, I'm watching today for a Friday put spread, big old reverse head and shoulders. And they were in the news. Something came. The journal said they issued a software update and warning, whatever, about the plane crash. Yeah, EOG is on my top list here today. Remember, we spoke about it in detail. EOG, I like the SCS, I like the IWM put spread. Sienna, I need a pullback, but that's going to be a core trade, breakout daily, weekly, monthly. AES, I need a pullback. Aetna, we were watching for a put spread, but the spreads were preposterous. Rost, I'm looking at for a put spread. I gave one to our weekly trading folks pre-market. Oh, Dove here, we also have a put spread in the advisory letter. Oh, and Daku, another one I missed here. We have a put spread in Daku, and that, if it can shape up and take out last week's high, that's a directional, if it can get going. DRI, this came from, what's his name, yesterday? Multiple time frames in alignment. I like this. Directional and put spread. I'm gonna put this in a window. Yeah, so I have a lot of leftovers. Cody, gapping down 941, very bearish gap, but it's a big gap. XLC, can't tell. Ross, talked about. ACB, marijuana's in play again, which we've been saying the last few days. It's just they haven't been no-brainer entries. A bullish gap here from 3-bar consolidation, but that's nothing to do there. ITG, gapping almost 30 bucks. You know, if this, so Greg, we're gonna have a lot of gaps to talk about today. I mean, like every day, there's so many gaps. But if that were gapping right there, just over resistance, then that's a bullish pre-market. That's very bullish action. Then that would be a pounding pattern long. But now it's gapping up to 30 bucks, so I can't rush into it, but I'm going to watch it. ITG, putting that in a symbol. RRGB, 31 bucks, bearish, but need a pattern. Here's marijuana. See, there's no good patterns. NVIDIA, I'm looking at as a put spread, maybe 15-minute highs. Zulu, very bearish gap, but nothing to do right now. Juniper, a subscriber sent this to me saying, hey, what about a breakout on the monthly? But the weekly has rallied from the low to the highs, so we do not buy breakouts like that. But on a pullback, yes. If I get a pullback here on the daily, then yes. 929, I know the bell's going to scare Jimmy and me. Oracle, we're in. Fizzler, we're in. Fox A, Alex, you gave me this. It looks great. That's a tier 1. Putting that in a window. That looks great.